David Clendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, yeah, excellent choice. So I'm pleased to take a brief call on this unfortunate piece of legislation. I think there's one thing we can be sure about. If this bill passes, we can be sure there will immediately be an increase in visitor numbers to Auckland. Even before the convention centre is built, every casino operator, every gambling operator around the world will be coming to Auckland to ask Sky City, how did you negotiate such a sweetheart deal where you cannot possibly lose? Yes. Because that is the nature of this legislation. Correct. Sky City cannot lose on this legislation. The regulatory concessions are very carefully set up in Section 6 to ensure that any regulatory or legislative change can only work to the advantage of Sky City. You've got to give them credit for having achieved that in a perverse sort of a way. And they will be the poster boy of the gambling industry internationally for having pulled off this incredible coup, for having got this extraordinary set of concessions from a government who basically are giving them an open ticket. It's not even having $1 each way. They're guaranteed to win whichever way future legislation goes. It is a win-win deal for Sky City. It is a lose-lose deal for New Zealand, for people with gambling problems, for the social services who will have to pick up the residue, the mess that this increase in gambling and problem gambling behaviour will leave behind. I think it's very instructive to go back to the feasibility studies that were conducted in 2007, 2009 over that period. All of the international evidence says that building convention centres in the current era, in the current situation, you will never recoup your cost of capital. You might make money on the operation of such a thing, but the capital investment is sunk. You simply cannot generate enough income to pay for that, which is why the MED feasibility study recommended some sort of public-private partnership, that the public sector could meet some of the capital cost, and with these. The trade-off, obviously, that there are wider benefits, attracting people to the region, tourists who will come and spend money outside of the convention centre, and a private operator. Ngāti Whātua would have been an ideal partner, for example, an entity that has cash, that has land already, an organisation that's not going anywhere, that's not looking for a short-term return. Instead, they didn't have an opportunity to put a bid on the table, to put up a business case. Unfortunately, they were trumped very early in the piece by this extremely shoddy deal that enables an operator, Sky City, to come in with guaranteed win. Better odds than any casino anywhere in the world has or would ever offer. Sir, I'd like to speak to some of the SOPs, some of the changes we would like to see made to this legislation. I take Mr Mallard's point made earlier that this bill is probably irredeemable in a sense, but we must endeavour to at least make it somewhat less bad than it is. And clearly our first... I'm much more polite than you, Mr Mallard, yes, yeah. Yeah, polish it well, yes, yeah. We won't go there just right now. The SOP 379, in the name of our co-leader, Matiria Ture, suggests that we do away altogether with Clause 6, because that is the clause that is basically the win-win. It ensures that Sky City cannot lose, that any legislative change they can ignore if it's to their advantage, or they can accept if it's to their advantage. There's no way they can lose in any future change in the gambling legislation. This shoddy document overrides the gambling law, which everybody else must obey, but any changes to it which are to their advantage, they can gratefully accept, though it's actually hard to see how any law could improve on the deal they've already cut. So our SOP 379 suggests we do away with that clause and at least put them on something like an equal footing with other gambling operators, other casino operators, and just introduce just a tiny element of risk, because at the moment this deal is absolutely risk-free for for Sky City. We might assume that they're planning to build this thing in the spirit of altruism, to give the people of Auckland a gift, a convention centre that may in time attract more visitors, high roller, rather high dollar spend visitors, which would do our tourism industry no harm. But call me cynical, I don't think they did this in a spirit of altruism. They know very well the return on the extra gambling capacity that they're being gifted by this legislation will very quickly, Mr Chair.
David Cleandon.
Thank you, Mr Chair. They will very quickly recoup the capital cost through their gambling machines, through the extra capacity that this entitles them to, and that's a very unfortunate situation. Every business ought to accept a little bit of risk. It stimulates, it motivates good thinking, good business practice. There is no risk in this deal for Sky City. So we're SOP 385, again in the name of Matiria Ture, suggests we should introduce the compulsory pre-commitment cards. So I'm a person that's never entirely understood gambling. I can think of many more interesting and exciting ways of wasting money than poking it into a machine or hoping that a particular card's going to come up. I won't go into that, what they happen to be. But the fact is motorcycles might be high on that list, yes. It seems sensible, and if Sky City or any casino operator is genuinely committed to reducing the harm associated with gambling, doesn't it make sense to insist that people must make a decision when they are still thinking clearly, before the heat of the moment, the excitement, the adrenaline, whatever it is that attracts people to gambling and locks them in to spending much more than they can afford? Wouldn't you want people making that decision up front? I will tonight spend $100, which somebody else might spend at a movie, at a club, at a theatre, whatever it might be. That simple pre-commitment, making pre-commitment compulsory, would ensure that people would make the decision when they are thinking relatively clearly, before they get into the excitement, the heat of the moment, at which point all bets are off and they start spending way beyond their capacity to actually way beyond what they can afford. The proposal from Internal Affairs, in fact, that all gaming machines should display the odds of winning and how long a gambler has been playing, because we know from the literature, from observation, that people do completely lose track of time. And of course the environment is very carefully managed to ensure that people lose track of time. The lighting, the absence of any clocks or any other record, the music, in many cases the provision of food, alcohol, all of the comforts of home, to ensure that people completely lose track of how much time they're gambling, how much money they're spending, until they reach the point of no return. Wouldn't have cleaned out their bank accounts, maxed out their credit cards, and that's when the trouble starts. That's when the criminal behaviour starts. People start stealing off their employers, off their families, off friends, whoever it may be. And in that sense, we have a further proposition that Sky City should actually be liable, and I refer now to SOP 378, that the Criminal Proceeds Recovery Act should have a new section to extend the definition of unlawfully benefited from significant criminal activity to Sky City. It is peculiar that if people, through fraud, through outright theft, through whatever means, illegally obtain money and gamble that money, even if they are found, if they're prosecuted, convicted, pay whatever price they pay, the only winner in that, again, is the casino. They bear no cost for that. They may have a very shrewd idea of who the people are who seem to have endless amounts of money, people who are laundering money, people who are spending the proceeds of crime, people who have defrauded, stolen cash from employers, from family, from friends. And yet the casino has no responsibility to manage that. And we think that inserting something into the Criminal Proceeds Recovery Act would put a little bit of discipline around them, perhaps incentivise them to be a bit more thoughtful. Again, if they were carrying any risk around this behaviour, which currently they are not, that would be a considerable discipline to put on them. It's simply unacceptable that the means by which people spend money which has been illegally gained. People launder in money. It simply is unacceptable that the entity, the casino, who enjoys the profit of that, carries none of the risk or none of the responsibility for endeavouring to see that it doesn't continue. I'll just return to the point that we have been accused of being anti-convention centre per se, and I don't believe there is a strong feeling opposing the idea of a convention centre in Auckland. Why would you? There are arguments from within the tourism sector that it would be an asset, that it would attract visitors to Auckland who otherwise may not come. There is an international market. It's a line call. If somebody wants to make the business case and put their own money on the line to ensure that happens, so be it.
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Marianne Street.
Very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the call, and I want to pick up where my colleague